How did it come about?
Well, with the tight-waisted characters, there's specific places to go to find people with tight waists, so that was sort of easy. But
any in town? We got some time.
But it was one of the things that was sort of thinking about the way that the Mormon Church uses the beehive, to speak about the relationships between people within the hive being stronger than any of the individual people. I found it a sort of exciting way to try to organize the project, to think that the whole piece could exist within the hive, and that all of the characters within the story were bees in some way, and that as you're saying, that Baby Faye was the queen bee, and that Gilmore was a drone, and his condition was grim. He wasn't gonna live past one generation, like any drone. That they're only there to inseminate the queen, and if they don't, they're jettisoned from the hive. And he needed to learn how to survive. So he thought that if he took his own life, he could go to Houdini and learn how to metamorphose. And that Houdini would perform this stunt called the metamorphosis, that he would trade places with his wife. He would go into a locked trunk, and then minutes later he would reemerge as his wife would reemerge. So it was the first of these replacement tricks that are really common today. That preoccupied quite a bit of the casting. This notion of finding people with tight waists, and of course, Mallory talked about with this notion of his role, his paternal role in the story. The Johnny Cash scene is complicated to talk about because it started out as one thing and became something else. But I mean, it's basically referential to this phone call that took place where Johnny Cash calls Gary Gilmore on death row, and a song is sung,
and nobody ever knew what it
was. Yeah, whether it was just Gary sort of high on pills singing on the phone, or whether they were actually singing together, or what was going on. So that scene sets up the first murder, really. That the phone call comes out of a scene which is sort of the insemination of Gary, who's living in these two cells between two Ford Mustangs, one his girlfriend's. The phone call comes to him within the cell. He leaves the cell, takes the life of the gas station attendant. I guess the way that I guess back to the bee theme, that although I am certainly a fan of that music, I thought that it would actually be useful to include it in the film. That the way that the guitars in speed metal, especially early speed metal, sort of sound like a bunch of bees, and the way that Dave Lombardo's drumming established a sort of wall of sound style of drumming. That I guess if this scene was going to be that kind of an intersection, that it would. I told you this was going to be a difficult one to talk about. The reason why is because originally it was meant to be another of these constellation of fathers. That I was actually interested in getting Johnny Cash to sing the song, Dave Lombardo to play the drums, and actually the person at the mixing board would be the same person that produces both Slayer and Johnny Cash, which is Rick Rubin. Thank you. So neither Johnny Cash nor Rick Rubin were interested in being really involved into something else, but I guess Rubin was replaced by sort of compression of a death metal singer and Fred Bolitnikoff, who was the MVP of a Super Bowl that happened days after the execution of Gary Gilmore. and that the execution of Gilmore was being referred to as the Super Bowl of executions, and the way that the press was treating it.
That was damn good. Damn good. Going to 3, here you have something that you've been struggling towards from the very, very beginning of the conceptualization of the cycle, and that's the Chrysler Building. And you also have, it's the longest, it was the longest to shoot. It probably has the densest plot of all of them. Many, many things. There are many, many plot strands that are expanding all at once. And then you have the sheer spectacle when the film moves to the game board, which is the Guggenheim. I think we've now reached the end of our own cycle. And I thank you very, very much, Matthew, for sharing this time with us.